So Liverpool threw a lot more easily than we expected. Virgil van Dijk saying there, we thought it was tough. I put it to you, Graham, that it wasn't nowhere near as tough as we thought it was going to be.
Watching it, I thought they would have a hard night tonight. I thought there'd be a storm arrive from Bayern, but it never arrived. And I think it was a routine win. They seemed to win quite comfortably. Bayern, I thought, were very disappointing. And maybe that's a reflection, what we've seen in recent weeks with Schalke and Dortmund. Maybe it's a reflection on German football right now that it's bang average. But fair play to Liverpool. They went there. I thought they looked like a really competent side. They weren't. The front three weren't bang at it tonight, but they didn't need to be, thank goodness. But the midfield behind them, as always, worked their socks off. Looked rock solid, apart from a couple of times when Robertson was caught ball watching. Goalkeeper didn't have a lot to do when you think about, playing away in a big European night. It was a routine win for them. I mean, and they should take great credit from that because they all knew their job and they made it look easy at times. Fair play to them. How
influential was Sadio Mane towards that result, Keith?
He's just a class act, Tommy. He's been the driving force in recent weeks. He's the one that's had that little bit of spark, a little bit of dynamism about how he goes and plays. And when he gets into areas, he doesn't just show to feet. I think him and Salah provide that stretch. Manuel Neuer does not cover himself in glory whatsoever here. He gets a little bit kind of, I don't know really what he's thinking.
Excited.
It's standard for him in recent times, though, unfortunately.
And not getting there, yeah. But look, his overall performance, I just thought was calming, was assured. His work rate off the ball to dig in and help his midfield. And when he did get into areas, he just shows real composure. I think he's playing at the top of his game. Still only 26 years of age, so he still has a little way to go. He was toying with Bayern at times. And this was without him getting real, regular, comfortable possession. This is the one, look, nipping back in. That is absolutely priceless. When you're going away to places like Bayern, and again, he gets into advanced areas. I just think him out of the front three at the moment is the driving force. I love him.
I love about him. You don't call strikers warriors very often. He is. He'll put his foot in sometimes when he shouldn't, but he wants people to know he wants to take part in the game. And when he's having a stinker, and he does have occasionally, he keeps going and wants, and then he goes around kicking people. Which is not a striker's job.
A kind of complete striker's performance, Brian. We're seeing bits there, tracking back, helping out, finishing off, setting up.
Dribbling, yeah, but the most important part of the job is getting goals. But particularly in the away game where you think your team are going to be under pressure, to pull out a bit of genius. Liverpool hadn't done an awful lot until he got the first goal. They had a couple of little breakaways, but nothing that looked like it was going to finish with a goal until that moment. And it was a bit of genius, just 3 touches. And the ball is in the net. Absolute brilliance. But as Keith said, he's been the one consistent. About one thing is consistent in the forward line in the last maybe 10 weeks or so, when Firmino went off a bit and the goals dried up for Salah a bit. Mane continued to score the
10 goals in his last 10 games for him. We just heard from him a moment ago. When the tie was still in the balance at 1-1, and it could have gone either way, Virgil van Dijk's header from that corner was so decisive, Graham.
Yeah, this argument about what's the best system, man for man or zonal. The Germans were going zonal, Hummels was standing on the 6-yard line, and Virgil van Dijk got a run on him. He was always going to win this ball. What they should have done, go zonal, but get someone to block Virgil van Dijk's run, because he is the obvious threat at set pieces. He's a monster of a man, he's so athletic.
It was actually the sort of goal Liverpool used to concede until they signed him. Yeah. Until they signed him to stop that sort of
situation. Now they top the Premier League for set-piece goals on 17, 4 ahead of Tottenham, who are second, so it's a real
He's the single reason for that.
They've added it really to their armoury. Brian, we looked at the creative side and how they won the tie. The work rate defensively as well, Brian, you thought that was important.
Fabinho come into the match instead of Henderson. We all wondered why he wasn't starting. We thought he would start. But look, this all looks very simple. You'd hardly notice it unless you're watching very closely. Back in between the centre halves, heading the ball away. Salah on his bike. Here he comes across. just kind of gives him a little bit of a shove, Ribery, and wins the ball back. But it wasn't only him. This is in the last minute of the first half. Look at Salah racing back from his attacking right side of position to come back and make a tackle on the opposition's wing, and the ref blows for half-time. And no matter who it was in the midfield, the job was done. Here's Fabinho getting back, look, doing a little job for Robertson, who had some trouble in the match. Looks like he's out of position. Fabinho rescued by Matip that time. And it was the work rate of the Liverpool midfield and Mane, that was absolutely crucial to the performance. And this was at a stage in the match when it's 1-1 and it's not a foregone conclusion you're going to win the game. This one here is the most important piece, maybe. Fabinho left in 1v1 with Coleman, and he just makes the timing of the tackle perfect and gets it out of play.
And last words to a man who has lifted the European Cup for Liverpool. Can they do it again after tonight?
Why not? Because they're a team that can defend and they've got a real threat. That the bit in between might not matter in a one-off game. You know, if you can defend properly and you've got a really good goalkeeper and you've got a workaholic or workaholics in midfield and you've got some special players up front, why not?
It worked out perfectly for them tonight, didn't it?